wabarakatuh. You guys are well. Okay, so today the slides are a bit fancy today. I decided to add a bit of color to the slides, but unfortunately the art of the slides is not going to be up to date, so bear with me. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So now we're in the third session of the series, and in this session, inshallah, what we're going to be looking at is the transition from the Khulafa period to the period of the Tabi'in now. So as you can see on the screen, you have the green period, which was the prophethood period. You got the light blue period, which is the four caliphs, and then you got the pink period, which is the Umayyad. This is what we're going to be focusing on today, this era, this pink era, and the brown era, Abbasid Khilafah. Okay, so a lot of what's happening now in this today's session is going to be the early formation of the madhabs. So the formation of the madhabs, a lot of it takes place in this era. So just over a little kind of fancy, I told you my artwork isn't up to date, but it does look a bit nice. So you got all those arrows there. There's 14 arrows there, or there should be about 14 arrows there, or how many ever they are. So these represent basically the caliphs of the Banu Umayyah, the 14 caliphs of Banu Umayyah, and the width of the arrows is supposed to represent the reign that they had. So we're going to be looking at generally overall this spread of the Khilafah over this entire era now. So all that green area from the west, you've got all Spain came into the Muslims' control, and on the east you've got all the way to India, right? So you've got all this area that's come, and obviously when areas come into the Muslim empire, you're going to have lots of culture that's going to come with them, lots of tradition that they had, lots of sciences that they already, or religions that they already were practicing. All of those are going to be challenges for Muslims. So one of the things we have to understand is the era of the Tabi'in. Tabi'in basically means the ones who are the followers from the Sahaba. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says that the best of generations is my generation, then those who follow them. So my generation means the Sahaba, and then those who come after them. So these are basically you have, what we call the golden era. The golden era of Islam, which was the Prophet ﷺ, and then his Sahaba, and then the Tabi'in. So the Tabi'in, a lot of the Tabi'in were actually non-Arabs. They were non-Arabs who had come into the fold of Islam. And again, Makkah is the H is a bit messed up there. So you got Makkah, Medina, Yemen, Sham, Kufa, Basra, Egypt. These were like now centers. They were going to become centers of knowledge now, right? So the reason they were centers is because knowledge was circulating, revolving around individuals, right? Sahaba who were still alive, and then Tabi'in, who followers of the Sahaba, who actually began to pass on the teachings of the Sahaba, right, from them, and then it carried on. So these places, 7 places, became like the centers of knowledge now, right? So these, I was going to mention like some names of some Tabi'in in these places, but I thought it's not really important for our series. But you can look these up. I mean, normally when I deliver this series, series number 1, lesson number 1, I actually delivered it over roughly about 10 hours. Series number 2, or part number 2, I delivered it over, I think it's about 10 hours as well. And then the third part was roughly, so I've tried to cram everything I could and taken out whatever I thought wasn't really relevant for you guys. I've taken that out. But a lot of the stuff that I have actually found and listed names as well. Inshallah, at the end of the slides, I'll be listing some names of some prominent Tabi'in who you might want to make note of. Okay, so this era played an important role for Hadith and the Sunnah concept. So remember we said before that the concept of Hadith was the transmission of reports, just preserving as many reports as you can. And then slowly the scholars began to codify this idea of transmission, and Usul Hadith came out. And then you have the idea of Sunnah, where the Sunnah, we said, according to the Fuqaha, was considered to be the widespread practice of Islam in the communities, right? So the Sunnah had this great range, right, which encompassed a lot of things, which Hadith didn't really kind of. So you got like two overlapping, you can say, circles. Okay, now benefits of traveling to study Hadith. So I just thought I'll list this for you guys. Benefits of traveling to study Hadith became like a new trend now. So in the past, remember, if you got a time machine, you go back to the time of the Sahaba, you're living in Medina, you're getting all your knowledge from Medina, from the Prophet ﷺ. That's where you're getting it from. The Prophet ﷺ passes away. Now where do you get your knowledge from? You're going to get your knowledge from the people who lived amongst him. But some of them scattered, some of them left their areas. And so what was happening now was Sahaba were becoming governors in various parts of the world. And they were the people who were basically walking, talking encyclopedias of Islam. That's what they were. So if you want to learn about Islam, you basically just accompany one of the companions, study as much as you can from them, and then you get the idea of what Islam was like in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, what knowledge is. So knowledge in them days would sharpen the intellect. Studying and traveling would sharpen the intellect, give people a better understanding of different societies, different cultures, and so forth. Refines knowledge as well. So sometimes you might have understanding of something which is very broad or general. And then when you start studying and you start learning the details, your knowledge becomes more refined. Traveling also separates narrations memorized from others. So, for example, like you guys can study at university. Everything you study at university, you probably can get it at home as well, right? But the problem is that when you're gonna travel, you're basically going to be focusing on learning the information rather than being at home where there's too many distractions. So narrations were more memorized, more people valued the knowledge more because they were giving up so much just to go and study that knowledge. Narrators are recognized in their cities, right? So basically, if you have a teacher, like one of the problems we have in today's times is anyone who talks about Islam, in a lot of cases, you don't know their background, you don't know their qualifications, you don't know if they are qualified to speak about Islam, you can't even tell whether what they're saying has a reference or not. But if you, for example, like go to Mecca or Medina or Sham or Egypt, and you say, I want to study by, Imam so-and-so or this particular Sahabi, everyone in the city is going to know him. And it will be impossible for that person to be known as a bad person and people still take knowledge from him, right? So it was like the community sort of monitors you. The community, your teachers, your community keeps an eye on you. So when students come to study from a person, they'll ask, who's the most knowledgeable in this particular city? And they might say, for example, like so-and-so is the most knowledgeable, right? So it's like verification. You got your qualification from the local people themselves. Reliability and strength of narrators are measured as well. So if you've got different areas and you got one, you said, okay, I want to study from these two scholars. One's in Egypt, one's in Kufa. So what you do is you travel to Kufa, you study whatever you can from him, and then you go to Egypt, you study from another person. And then you can test the reliability of their memories as well. So this also becomes something which is important later on when we talk about, or we're not going to talk about it, but we're just going to touch on it. The idea of how do you verify a narrator? What's the procedure of verifying? How do you know if a narrator has a bad memory? I mean, you guys have experienced this yourselves. You study from several teachers at, college or lecturers at university, and you kind of get an idea if they know what they're talking about. Like if they start talking about something that they're not very familiar with, you think, oh, I know, this guy's making it up, or this guy's like this, or this guy's, not very strong in what he's talking about. So people could pick that up by traveling and studying by different people. And narrations are not found in a person's city are gained. So if I live in, let's say I live in Sham, I study everything I can from the people of Sham. There's going to be hadith out there which I don't find in Sham. I might find them in, let's say, Yemen. I'd have to travel to Yemen to get those hadith. So in them days, studying knowledge from location to location was, in fact, like a really, really difficult, and it was it wasn't something that was done overnight. It required lots and lots of financial support. It required lots of determination, motivation, so many factors. And the idea was that you want to gain as many narrations and build a big picture of what the whole sort of like Sharia was